So feet hip width apart, weight forwards, hips dropping back. Get that feeling of sinking through your legs. Remind yourself of that feeling of sinking through your legs. And just making sure that you're genuinely turning from the center of your body. So we have two strands to these movements that we try and bring together. One is the looseness, the flow of the movement. The other is a sense of precision. And at first, it seems as though these things contradict each other. And certainly the thing that I think is attractive to people in that first instance is the flow, this image of people doing these lovely movements and so on. But you can't sustain the flow without the precision of the structure, and you can't properly apply yourself to the precision of the structure without it becoming rigid, without the flow. So we see on a physical level the interaction of those two aspects, but also in terms of what we might know, if you like, the mental aspect, the intent of the movement. We need a focus of attention that is clear. You want to get a sense, for instance, here that your fingers are tracing a particular pathway. Doesn't, to be fair, with this exercise, it's not specified exactly what is going on, but can you notice that? Can you make sure that there is an awareness of what is going on in your body and in different parts of your body, and in increasing detail as we progress? On the other hand, we use images to deliver certain qualities, certain aspects of the movement that a kind of technical element can't provide. We need to make sure that those images aren't things that we get carried away with. We can make use of an image of moving through water, of moving like a bird in flight, so on and so forth, but we don't want to get distracted by them. So like many things in Tai Chi, it's about finding the midpoint between various factors, bringing together different aspects, different elements of mind and body I was going to say in a balance, but balance is perhaps the wrong word, in an appropriate relationship. So what we might do in some cases is, sometimes I might focus on the precision of the movement, sometimes maybe on the flow. Recently I've been talking about how we approach those areas that are a bit blocked, that the idea of releasing, of letting go, but also we can put alongside that the image of movement flowing over these areas, like a rock in water, in a river being worn away. These are different styles of imagery. One is much more fluid, you could say. It's the water method. Fire is the more intrusive. You're being very specific. It's not right or wrong. It's not one or the other. These things should be. These are the things that should be sort of lined up on your shelf next to you, so that you can take down whatever is appropriate for this moment. And our ability to make that choice comes from the focus of our attention. Awareness of what's happening within the body, but also a projection forwards. You know, if you've got a stiff shoulder, would you like it to be looser? Sort of. I mean, it's kind of obvious the answer, really, but it gets much more subtle than that. Then raising our arms a little bit and get myself in position. And then just let your hands drop down. So feet parallel, toes pointing forwards, your weight a little bit forwards, bringing your knees above the balls of your feet, the hips dropping back, just allowing your knees to soften, the hips roughly above your ankles. So your weight slightly forwards, but you still feel quite settled. The Tai Chi in Tai Chi Chuan was represented by this diagram. You can see the green circle. One half of the circle is filled in, one half of the circle is empty. There's a little bit of one in the other as well, representing this concept of Tai Chi, where it's really about balance, harmony. And so what we want is to find the harmony with what's here and now. This is another balance that we want to find out. You know, if you're somebody who is feeling you want to develop this art, and there are certain things that you'd like to be able to learn, to grow into and cultivate, which is fair enough. It's a good thing. That needs to be balanced against what is required right now. This is a very practical art that can offer you something now as well as something in the future. So again, different apparently opposing aspects, but which with awareness we can bring into some kind of harmony, just as, you know, a saw will saw a piece of wood up, and you know, a screwdriver and a drill will help to join the wood. They're two opposite things, but done used appropriately, they can help us to make something. So just standing for a moment, thinking about how your posture improves things for you. Dropping your center of gravity may make your legs ache, but releases or starts to release some of the tightness from the upper part of your body. Bringing your shoulders into line with your hips, with your ankles, as your weight sinks. Gives you this stronger feeling, not just in your legs, but up through your back as well. That allows the front of your body to soften a little bit. That's where most of the organs are, of course. And that's where, you know, that's where we want this feeling of movement. Maybe notice your breathing. You can either just notice any change in your breathing. If you want to be a bit more proactive with your breathing, this is where you want to focus your attention, in the middle of your body, so that your in-breath begins with this expansion there. It's quite a small expansion, so don't force it, followed by an expansion in your solar plexus, followed by an expansion in the chest. From the side, it would look like this, with the front of your body expanding more than the back, but a certain amount in your back. And you see that roughly corresponds to the sort of triangular shape of our lungs. Now space for our lungs to expand into, bringing in more oxygen. But notice that we started by looking at posture, so it's hard to get that abdominal breathing if you're standing in such a way that everything's pulling in tight. But sometimes those of you with more experience, sometimes a reminder of this is how I want to breathe can have an effect on your posture. But mostly in Tai Chi, we would work on our posture first. Letting your hips drop back a little bit more and push up. So now your body begins to move, contracting down into the ground, shrinking almost into the ground, and then expanding upwards and outwards. When you come up, don't lock your knees back. Up here, up in our terminology, means here, which is the position that we just had, not here. So you're sinking down and back and up. Try not to let your knees move too much. So with the knees above the balls of your feet, they may move forwards just a little bit. Here, you see they're there. They're going to probably go, yeah, they go forwards a little bit. But what we don't want to do is to be here and to push our knees forwards like this and lean back. It's difficult. Your focus of your attention should be here at this point. Come a bit closer to show you. And what a lot of us do, particularly when we bring our arms into the movement, is that we start doing this. Bending forwards, leaning back, and so on and so forth. But use these first few moments here to give you a sense for what is really working in your body. If you want to check the alignment of your knees, I'm standing here with my toes against the skirting board of the wall, and I'm sinking down, and I don't want my knees to touch the wall. Make sure you release in the tail of your spine, and don't let this happen, which is your knees pushing you back. It's just a little test. It's a bit awkward that close to the wall. You feel a bit kind of cramped in, so don't be surprised if it's just a little test, really. Bringing your hands around in front of you now and pushing up. And turn your hands over as though they're on top of the ball, pressing down or sinking down, pulling your hands down. Notice how close my hands are to my body. Change to the wild goose. The chest should have a sort of concave feel, we're told. And basically what that amounts to is not pulling your arm back, not trying to push your chest out. Don't actively try and draw your sternum inward with these opening movements, but try and feel that your rib cage remains fairly soft. And then parting the clouds. Notice how if you take a little bit of time with the sinking down and you're not in a hurry to sort of start the upward expanding stage of the movement, you begin to get a feeling of being pushed up. It's akin to the feeling you might expect on a trampoline or a bouncy castle. Once again, it's a useful way or beginning to understand some of the sort of qualities that we would expect to find in Tai Chi as a martial art, but they're also applicable in lots of other areas, I think. We're talking about a stronger sense of movement, a stronger sense of energy. Then same thing with dragon pucks, the stars from the sky, pushing up. Try and let your attention focus on the exercises. All sorts of stray thoughts wander in, don't they? Yeah, oh, I'm a bit tired. Maybe I'll just skip this. Don't really like this exercise, or I know this one, whatever. This is quite natural, quite normal, I think, for this to happen. Just sort of acknowledge the thought and let your attention come back to the movement that you're making. Again, making it as precise as possible. Have this idea that you're plucking something, and if you think about it, you're plucking an apple from a tree, you get there, your fingers would wrap around, you rotate, you break the stem, and then you pull down, and so on and so forth. And then if that works for you, you can refine the image even more. You think, well, it's not an apple, it's actually something like a peach, a soft fruit, so it's held within your hand, you're not squeezing hard, and so on and so forth. So the right image can offer interesting, useful ideas to focus your attention on. So the imagery itself can actually again help with this sense of precision in the movement. Change the image and you may find a change in how the movement works. Changing now to pushing in 4 directions, just leaving your hips dropping back a little. Again, hands slightly in front of your body. It's very easy with a movement like this just to think of it in terms of maybe your shoulders and your arms. But imagine there's a resistance to the movement. Moving through water helps with that. But also that maybe you can think that between your hands there's a strong elastic band and you're pushing it out. You need to engage more of your body in that. You need to be aware of how that works, how your body responds to that image. Notice whether you're speeding up or whether you're shortcutting. Just remind yourself to take each movement to its fullest point and then come back all the way without rushing. Notice how when you turn, for instance, you're extending certain parts of your body, and then the returning movement comes as a consequence of that extension. That drawing in, you could liken to being like squeezing on a rubber ball, and eventually the ball just expands again, pushing your fingers out. So again, with awareness, the imagery of the movement really helps us to enhance what is going on. Without that awareness, there's a danger that it becomes a bit dreamy and eventually just rolls to a halt. And change it. And then adding the turn. And then changing sides, noticing any difference between one side and another. That's important to realize these things. We don't want to just assume that we can do exactly the same with this arm as we did with the last one. And to make that assumption could be something that leads to a kind of pulled muscle or something like that. And then rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Remember, your hips going back and then dropping back and down. So this is quite strong on your legs, particularly at this stage. Dropping back here, your thigh muscles will really be the ones that feel that in the body in the first instance. There'll be a bit of a stretch in some ways, but also a kind of engagement there. But be careful, because if you go back too far and the muscles can't respond, then it could have an impact on your knees. And then same thing with this one, polishing the table. One more time in each direction. And then stand. So the way we use imagery in Tai Chi is a little different to how it might be used in relaxation arts or hypnotherapy or something like that. Sometimes, not always in those arts, but sometimes they use an image, they'll take you on a guided journey or something like that. They take you away from where you are because you can develop certain insights like that, and then he'll bring you back with those insights. Or sometimes, if it's relaxation, just to get you away from whatever it is that's stressing you out for a few minutes. That can be very valuable. It's not, this is not a criticism of that, but it isn't what we do in Tai Chi. In Tai Chi, we're trying to bring those qualities into play at the moment that we're actually in. You don't, I mean, in very crude terms, if we think of Tai Chi as a martial art, if you think about the old Shaolin tradition of martial art in China, when they talk about tiger kung fu, or when they talk about snake kung fu or whatever, they're not trying to sort of like imagine themselves as a tiger. Some of the training might involve that. They're trying to bring some of the qualities of what they imagine the tiger to be into their body at that particular time. You're not going to get very far in the fight if you're in the middle of your fight, your attention goes somewhere else and you're imagining that you're a tiger. Sort of thing. So this gives Tai Chi a very, very immediate practical value, I think. And I think it's important that we don't lose somewhere along the line that sense that Tai Chi very much sits present in the situation that we're actually in. It's not an escape from that situation. What it can do is shift our perspective on that situation. If you're in the middle of a busy day and you come to Tai Chi, that's a great thing to do. Your day is still going to be busy. But what you don't have to do at this particular point is plan it. You don't have to get involved in doing that. You can find that sense of stillness that comes from the focusing of attention, and while you're doing the movements themselves, and when you go back into your busy day, you go back in with a fresher, more aware quality about you. Now, have your feet a little bit wider apart. The full horse riding stance is often measured by this process. You start with your feet together, turn your toes out to 45 degrees, push your heels out to 45 degrees, and then turn your toes out again. So you may or may not be comfortable this wide. It requires a certain stretching on the insides of your legs and conditioning all the way through your legs to be able to be comfortable in this. Just letting your hips drop down. But you will find in time that the space that this gives you actually helps with that feeling of dropping down, of rooting down, and it will of course condition your legs. Now just gently transferring your weight from left to right and right to left. Keeping your weight forwards. So from here, as I move, I want my weight to go about there in my foot and corresponding point in my other foot. So I can feel or imagine a line between those two. And if I, for instance, go along and I slip back from that line, that's what will happen. So again, awareness of this becomes very important. It's like if you were going to you're out for a walk and you come to a stream or a ditch, and there's a narrow bridge, like a plank or something like that, crossing the bridge. You can cross safely, yeah, because you've got the plank there, so long as you walk on the plank. If you're not taking any notice and you're looking around, you could fall in. So we generate an awareness And if that was a regular walk for you, if it was in your back garden or something like that, then, and probably you could go down to it and walk across it without actually having to think about it. It would be there, it would be embodied in your awareness. But if you were with somebody and you were showing them around your garden, you just walked across, they'd go, oh, hold on, let me concentrate on this for a moment. So if you do this enough, then you will begin to be able to make that transition, that weight transfer. And it becomes more fluid at that point. Just letting your body turn. I encourage people in the first instance to separate out these two things. So you move your weight across and you turn. You move your weight across and you turn. But actually, they very much overlap. And you can see, I'll put my hand here so you can see a bit better. I start to move my weight and already my body's beginning to turn. Same thing here. In fact, sometimes what I might do is turn my body to move my weight in that direction. Depends on the exercise that I'm doing. These things aren't fixed in stone. And once we've begun to feel it in this direction, which is the body turning towards the direction that our toes are pointing in, then we realize I could go back to here. Instead of turning this way, I could sit here. So now I could do it like this. So it can work in different directions. But the basic movement is this one. Hands in front of you. So we have a rotation in our hips. As I come across here and I turn, there's a rotation here. It's like my pelvis is, if that's my leg, my pelvis is there. My pelvis is trying to do this. But the problem is my elbow hasn't got anything restricting it. But my other end of my pelvis does. So if I do this, then this can happen very easily. I can twist up that back leg. So I can only move up a relatively short amount. And I want to get this opening here in what we call the quad, where the leg meets the torso. But what we can also get is a sense that as I come across here and I rotate here in my right hip, it'll be on your left, then there could be a similar rotation in my shoulder joint. So some of you will be familiar with the exercise bird folds its wings. Just hold your hands here, and again, I'm going to come closer so you can see a bit more detail. I move across, I turn, and this arm just rotates because my shoulder rotates. I come back the other way, it rotates back, and you can't see it, but my other hand is now rotating. So now what we can do is we can work with that. This time as you go into your left and your arm rotates, drop your elbow down and you're here, part in the wild horse's mane, you come back. And as you turn this time, both shoulders rotate. So the hands turn palm in, so you're holding the ball, coming back, turn a little bit to your left, and then straight through into the next stage, top hand pushing straight down. So we have all these little linking movements. They don't always link up. It depends on the movement you're doing, the part of the movement that you're on. And again, this is where your awareness, your attention becomes very important. If you can have the idea of your body as a highly sophisticated, very complex piece of machinery, like looking into a car engine and realizing there's all these different things going on at the same time. which ones we make use of at any particular time, again, comes down to the discernment of our awareness. Heart in the wild horse's mane. Another thing that is useful to consider with a movement like this is that stiller quality that is one of the outcomes of the focusing of our attention is also very important here, because we take one movement at a time. It's often the case when I see people doing this, I'm leading them through it. They start off quite good, but over a period of time, it starts to go wrong. This happens. They start to improvise. They start to add movements. I think some of that comes out of our almost an anxiety. They know that at some point here, somewhere along the line, the hands are going to turn palm in. So they sort of do it quickly. Oh, they think they must be wrong because they haven't done it. But actually, the hands don't turn in until here. So we start to rush. And I think that comes from a sort of anxiety that we might get the movement wrong or somehow get left behind. So two things here. One is that it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake. Everybody does that. The other is that actually the process of not making the mistake is a really important one, because we do one movement at a time. This, if you like, is a kind of mindful element in Tai Chi. That we simply stay with one particular movement until it reaches a natural conclusion. It's possible that we might not recognize that conclusion to begin with, but the movement sort of finishes here. Then it starts again, and it finishes here. And then the hands turn in, and then we move over, and so on and so forth. So we're not stuck in either trying to anticipate too much or just getting sort of stuck in the previous movement. And if we can just have some confidence in that process, you realize that it does actually help you to navigate the more complex movements. One more on each side. Good, and shake out. So that process of 1, 2, 3, different stages of the movement is akin to something like the mindfulness of breathing, which is a very common practice. You find it in things like mindfulness-based stress relief and so on and so forth. Because again, it's about being in this moment, not blinded by this, and not necessarily in the interest of, again, imagery that is not real. But it's just not concerning yourself. You may have something difficult to do this afternoon, and yeah, okay, fine, you've got something difficult to do, but don't let that take over what you're doing now. It's like these are the moments when you get some kind of respite from thinking about the future, thinking about the past, and so on and so forth. Not in a kind of nihilistic way, and again, not in the interest of transporting yourself somewhere else. These images of these lovely images of sort of like flowers blooming in the spring and water running down the waterfall and things like that aren't intended to to take you somewhere else and to pretend that, you know, it's not a grey November day. They're there as a reminder that we can find these little moments of stillness, of peace, little moments of kind of beauty, because actually then we realize just how lovely the movement is. You know, it has this lovely sort of flow. You could be standing there thinking, yeah, so I've got to get to the post office and I need to do this and I need to do that. Or you could be thinking, isn't that lovely the way the hand moves, sort of thing. So and yeah, again, it's the latter that we're trying to build. Yeah. One foot forwards, transferring your weight. Ultimately, there shouldn't be, once again, an either-or process here. Tai Chi as a martial art seeks to develop that still quality, that awareness within, well, for me anyway, I don't know about you, but for me, the idea of fighting is a very stressful one. And yet, Tai Chi seeks that sense of stillness, that sense of harmony within that, because it's to your advantage in those situations. But when we're practicing solo like this, what we're focusing on is what we're doing here. But when you go out to, you go to the post office or whatever it is you're having to do, see if you can retain some of that awareness. Can you just remind yourself as you're walking down the road that you've just done some Tai Chi? And when you do Tai Chi, we think about the weight transfer, for instance. We soften in our knees and our hips. Just try and have that in the back of your mind every now and then. Remind yourself of that. See how much of a difference it makes. Do it in a straightforward situation. Don't think, right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to really deal with this difficult issue because I've just done my Tai Chi. You know, the first time I'm trying out, literally walk into the shop or something like that. These things have to be built up, but eventually you learn to carry these ideas, these principles with you. Just raising your toes and your heel, letting your weight settle more into the supporting leg. So the value of the experience of stillness, just as the value of the experience of, you know, the images of the flower shining in the morning light and so on and so forth, apart from they have an inherent loveliness about them, of course, but they can also remind us that is there, and it's sometimes useful to have that reminder. Stepping in. And then shake out. 30 or so years ago, not long after I started teaching, I had a few students who were involved in what we now know as the internet. They used to say to me about this weird thing called the World Wide Web, and nobody really knew outside of the circle where it was being developed what it was about. I certainly didn't. I didn't have a computer or anything. But one thing I was aware of was just that it was quite high pressured for them. They were quite kind of, oh, this is that, and they used to feed back to me that what they used to do was to set an alarm, and they'd be working on, I don't know what they'd be working on, but they were involved in the development of what we now know as the internet. And the alarm would go off every hour or every hour and a half or something like that, and that would be their signal to get up to go outside or to stand in a space somewhere and go and do some Tai Chi. And just to remind themselves that, you know, this environment that they were so engaged with, and the problems that they were so engaged with, wasn't the whole world. And I think that is really important for all of us to remember. And they could then go back in with a clearer attention to what they were going to be doing. So now, transferring your weight on the other, but they used to put the alarm clock on, they said, because otherwise they'd forget. They get caught up in things, and we get caught up in aspects of our lives very, very easily. And you know, it's not that they're not important. Without the work those people have done, I probably wouldn't be standing here in front of a camera teaching Tai Chi to you. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but on the other hand, it's not something that is good for us to become locked into. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And then step through. And then and back. Bring your feet back. So ultimately, Tai Chi is an art that enables us to engage more completely and in a much more creative way with our lives. One of the sayings associated with Tai Chi is seek the stillness within the movement. That within movement there is always stillness. Where there's stillness, there will always be movement around it. Another is, you know, be still as a mountain, move like a great river. It doesn't say be still as a mountain or move like a great river. It's talking about both together. In our own practice, at any particular time, we may have particular needs. We may have particular things that we need for that time, that day, or whatever. So we focus on one thing or another. But the ultimate aim is for there not to be a distinction between them, so that you can carry that still aware quality into your sort of everyday interactions in one way or another. So have your right foot forward, sink back, fisherman cast a net, pulling your arms through, feeling your elbows come through, wrists and things, all as you settle in that front leg. Sinking down and just feeling the expansion outwards. A tremendous momentum can build up with this. We were just talking about in those opening exercises. You happen to catch your hand on the wall. It can be very painful. This is one of the elements of the internal strength in Tai Chi, the way that we're able to build up the momentum in our body, the energy in our body, without the energy sort of like making us fall over or something like that. The awareness tells us how to put the restrictions around that movement, like water flowing down a river. It needs both the structure of the riverbed and the banks and the water for both to be effective. So now when we change to pushing wave, we want to maintain that quality of the movement, but just to direct it a little bit. What you've just done is a bit like if you were watering your garden, not you need to today, but you have a hose pipe and you think, well, I want to get the water over there. If you just slide your thumb across the hole in the hose pipe, you cover half of it, got the same amount of water, but it comes out more powerfully. So with fisherman cast a net, it's this bigger movement. We've gone from this to this, but we haven't done it in such a way, hopefully, that restricts the movement. We haven't suddenly tightened up or anything. That's a tricky process. And again, requires a great deal of awareness when we do it. Am I, are we, I don't know, stiffening our shoulders? Am I tight in my hands or whatever? Now, sink back and just leave this hand, your right hand behind. Turn. And as you turn, let that hand swing your left hand up to your shoulder. Rotate the front hand palm up. Come forwards. Notice that the hands pass quite close to each other. Turn in again for repulse the monkey. Don't just pull the front hand back. Replace it with the hand coming through. Imagine there's, repulsing the monkey, imagine there's a monkey there, something there. And you're not really trying to push them away as much as you're just trying to keep them back. What you don't want to do is this, then they'll come in. But what you might do is change your hands over. No, stay there. And there. And there. And so on and so forth. Shake out. Have your left foot forward. So we started with fisherman cast a net, giving us that lovely sense of energy and momentum. One more time. So we're going to make the transition now to pushing wave without losing that momentum, that sense of energy. So careful how you shape the movement. And I use the term energy to describe that capacity within our body to work as one unit. Energy is the capacity to do work. And if you strengthen the energy, the connections, the movement, all these different elements, then your capacity to do things is strengthened. And then repulse the monkey. Factoring in the turning in the movement. This means that there is more variety in, if you like, the work that we can do, the actions that we can take. It's also, of course, that stronger energy, and all that's involved in that is also right at the heart of how Chinese medicine will work. By strengthening the energy in the body, we strengthen the ability of all the different systems of the body to do their work. Coming forwards, this time as you turn, raise your heel, step through, leaving the right hand out in front and come forward. So this hand stays there. If you imagine the monkey, you're gradually just pushing them back, not tight, not hard, just there, keeping your hand there in position. And then as you come back, again, the monkey's still there, you're keeping in contact. You're meant to keep in contact. It's not a pushing away, but just maintaining that space in front of your body, covered by your arms, but not in a hurry to move with that front hand. Let the center of your body create the movement for you. And then bringing your feet parallel. Shake out. Now, just rubbing your hands together and tapping over your face. Your head and neck. One shoulder, arm. The side. Belly. Around. Back. Around the hips. Outside your legs, not the inside. And shake out. So embrace tiger, return to the mountain, sinking down, pushing up, extending outwards, and then drawing inwards. Yang, Tien. And then Yin to Yang. Not in a hurry, not forcing the movement. If possible, waiting until you feel that sense. It's almost a surge upwards through your body. One more round. And stand. Shake out. Thank you very much, everybody. So.